What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right. So, look, man, everyone is entitled to their opinion. And for the most part, you have to respect most people's opinions, especially when they give you sufficient reasons as to why they feel the way they feel. Now, it's one thing if someone says, well, I feel this way because I just feel this way, and they can't give you any real definitive reasons why they feel the way they feel. I know sometimes we can get into an area where it's encroaching on group think, which is a bad idea. Just because the majority feel a certain way doesn't mean that everybody has to feel that way. But at the same time, when you have a contrarian opinion, I think you have to give. It's more on you to give a concrete reason why you feel the way I feel, or why you feel that way. For instance, I know that I have a contrarian opinion about the GOAT. Most people think it's Michael Jordan. The majority of people at least think it's Michael Jordan. I think it's Wilt Chamberlain. But at least I give you reasons why I feel the way about Wilt and why I feel he's the GOAT. But at the same time, you've heard me say, I can understand why someone thinks it's Michael Jordan. I can understand it completely. It doesn't anger me. It doesn't perplex me. I completely understand why a lot of people think Michael Jordan is the GOAT. But when you start saying things that really make no sense, or things that are really out there, to me, you got to really explain these things. Like, look, I know I'm coming across this Nikola Jokic hater, but people are pushing a lot of us to this. Unlike everybody else in the history of the NBA, for the most part, apparently there's no voter fatigue when it comes to Nikola Jokic and the MVP thing. I mean, look, even when Larry Bird won his 3 consecutive MVPs in the mid-'80s, which they're trying to do with Jokic, they're trying to make him like the modern-day Larry Bird for some reason, or quote-unquote better, even though he hasn't won a damn thing. At least with Bird, he had the championships. He won in 84, right? Even if you can call it a Lakers collapse, but they won in 84. They went to the finals again in 85 and lost. But Bird had a phenomenal individual season in 85. Then in 86, he has another great season, and they have an all-time historic team. And they go to the finals and win. So at least with Bird, when he won those three MVPs in a row, he had the success to back up the stats. You see what I'm saying? He had the success to back it up. He had the 2 finals MVPs, the 2 championships, the 3 finals appearances during that span. Jokic hasn't won a damn thing other than these MVPs. And if he wins 3 in a row, he'll be the only 3-time winner in the history of the NBA with absolutely no championships. And I don't mean that to finish off his career. I mean, everybody else that I can think of that's a 3-time winner had already won a championship by the time they won their 3rd MVP. Or at least in that year, if I'm not mistaken, they had won their first championship. So, yeah, Jokic got to win this year. I'm sorry. People are downplaying Jamal Murray like this ain't the same guy that was putting on a show in the bubble or putting on a show in the last few years, destroying the Clippers, destroying the Utah Jazz, putting up 40 or 50 points. People act like Jokic doesn't have six other players or had six other players for a trade on his team averaging double figures. While Giannis, his second best player, Chris Middleton, only averaging 13.6 points per game this year. Bobby Porter's still out, and yet he still, through injuries, has his team with the second best record in the Eastern Conference, only a hair's whisper away from the Boston Celtics. But the ESPN Power Rankings have him third in MVP ranking behind Jokic and Joel Embiid, which lets me know a lot of these guys are nothing but stat nerds. So let me go to this point with Jokic. I watched Jason Kidd's entire career. I would never say that Jason Kidd was a better offensive player than Jokic. He's not. And I know passing is part of offense. Jason Kidd was not a great shooter. And I sometimes think maybe perhaps some people of the younger generation have a bias toward quote-unquote shooters. But Jason Kidd is one of the greatest passers I've ever seen. Jason Kidd, wherever he went, he improved that team. The Mavericks were a historically awful team before he was drafted. Now, he did play with Jamal Mashburn and Jimmy Jackson, but they were at least a formidable team when they were together. They might go 35-47, 36-46. Before he got there, they were horrible, like a 10-72 team, a 15-67 team. Historically awful. Then he goes to Phoenix, and in a trade, I think he was traded there, and they are a pretty good team. They're a pretty good team. Stephon Marbury is playing in New Jersey at the time, the then New Jersey Nets, and they're a bad team, 20-something wins. Then there's the trade for Jamal Mashburn and Jason Kidd. And then comes the most surprising turnaround, arguably, in the history of the NBA. The Nets, under Jason Kidd's leadership, go from something like 25 wins to 50 into the NBA Finals. And my friends, he was not playing with, the greatest offensive talent the league has ever seen. He consistently played, honestly, with some of the worst offensive talent in the NBA. His team was, I believe, Todd McCullough, Kenyon Martin, Richard Jefferson, Kerry Kittles, and himself. That was the starting lineup. But yet he was able, through his pinpoint passing, because he knew where to get people the basketball, to make them most effective. Even though it was a low-scoring era, when he was in his prime, the late 90s into the mid-2000s, he was still able to push the pace fast enough for the Nets to consistently outscore their opponents more often than not, plus lead the team on the defensive end to steal a lot of victories to the point where they won 50 games, which they still haven't done, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, the Brooklyn Nets, despite being, now they might do it this year. They may. But I don't know. I don't think they'll do it this year because of the trades. Now I think about it. They may not do it this year. If I'm not mistaken, the Brooklyn Nets still, even in the KD, Kyrie, James Harden era, have not won 50 games. So this hasn't been done since Jason Kidd played there, back in, I think, 2001, 2002. Now, Jokic, I'm not selling him short, but the league averages 115 points a game now. You got 4 players in the NBA averaging 10 or more assists. 10 or more. 10 or more assists. 4. I believe they're James Harden, Trae Young, Jokic, and Tyrese Halliburton for the Pacers. 4. 4. And in the late 90s, early 2000s, the league average was like 91, 93, maybe 94 points. Jason Kidd, despite not playing with the most offensively explosive teams, was still averaging 8.5 to 9.5 assists. What the hell would he average today? What would he average today? Playing in today's NBA, what would he average in assists? What if he got to play on a team with a Jamal Murray or a Michael Porter Jr.? A guy with, players that can get the basketball. When Kidd was playing, hell, half of his lineup, he had to get them close. He had to pass. He had to give them passes while they're striding to the basket for layups or dunks because they didn't have any ball handling ability like that. They didn't have the shooting ability, and he was still able to rack up 8 or 9 assists per game. And Jokic is better. The floor is spaced out more. The floor is spaced out more. So yeah, he might can throw a pass that looks pretty because it won't get fucking, the pass won't get fucking stolen or deflected and stolen or some shit like that. With the floor being as wide open as it is, offensive players are going to be able to do certain shit that they couldn't do 20 years ago. That's just a given. Now, Jokic is a great passing big man. And I'm to the point where I'm willing to concede that he may be the greatest passing center of all time. Although I still want to maintain that he benefits from the era that he played in because centers back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, teams didn't run the offense through the center like that. Not consistently. So a center would not be able to rack up that many assists. But then I also say this, if you're so hell-bent on numbers, then we need to really revisit Wilt Chamberlain because he's the only other guy to have a season similar to this. And his numbers arguably were more superior because, number one, he averaged just as many points as Jokic when he was playing with the Sixers, 23, 24 points. Far more rebounds, 23, 24 rebounds. The assists were 7 to 8, 7.5 to 8.5 or something like that. But assists were a lot more difficult to come by back then. The pass had to lead directly to a bucket. Couldn't just get the pass, dribble, fade back, and that's counted as an assist. Today, yeah, not back then. So Wilt probably would have averaged a triple-double if he was playing today. Not to mention the fact that he had 78 triple-doubles in his career just based on assists and not his strongest or stronger asset, which was shot blocking. So that's why I've always maintained that Wilt probably had at least 400 career triple-doubles if blocks were counted during his career. But that's a whole different argument that people don't want to have. But anyway, this is Too Raw for TV. Tell me what you guys think.